Growing up in Willow Creek felt like being trapped in a story where I was meant to be the background character, the unplanned addition to a beautiful plot. The sun streamed through my bedroom window, casting a warm glow against the walls, but even the bright light could not chase away the shadows that clung to my heart. At 17, I was already living a life that felt like an echo of laughter and exuberance I could never touch. Moments of joy that danced around me felt like a distant melody, drifting away just as I reached out to grasp them. I had two siblings, Jessica and Nathan, who were 9 and 11 years older than me. They were the stars of our family, basking in the spotlight that never shone in my direction. "Remember when Jessica won that academic award?" my mother would say, her voice warm and nostalgic, an inflection that was simply full of pride. "And Nathan took home the championship for basketball. Such wonderful kids we have." Her laughter would fill the room, amplifying the feeling of exclusion that wrapped around me like a thick, suffocating blanket. I sat at the edge of the dining room table, my plate untouched, as she continued to reminisce. "And then there's Emily, our accidental blessing," she would add, her words dripping with a tone that felt casual, like an afterthought. Every single time those words fell from her lips, it felt as though a knife slipped between my ribs. Nobody ever considered how much that label cut deep into my existence, how their words spiraled around me like a storm cloud. Not only did I feel like I was unseen, but their pride also overshadowed my existence entirely. "Why can't you be more like your siblings?" my father would often ask with a casual shrug, a question devoid of any weight, as if the echo of their accomplishments should simply liquidate my intentions and desires. I felt like a trophy collecting dust in the attic, but brought out only when convenient. Their shared laughter rang in my ears as I ghosted through my childhood birthdays, the highlight of those occasions always revolving around how often they visited Disney World or spent summers at the lake. I sulked alone, a wilted flower surrounded by flourishing blossoms, wondering why I could never bloom beside them. I was a ghost in my own home, my parents' shining trophies displayed for all to see while I stayed hidden away, an uneasy reminder of a period that they had moved on from. I remember pacing the confines of my room, head spinning with the feeling of being left behind. Every glance out the window whispered tales of unity, adventures, and celebrations of brothers and sisters that I yearned to experience. It was almost unbearable watching friends share their own happy moments filled with sibling squabbles and cousin mischief. Their laughter rang true, unlike the hollow sounds that echoed in my home. "Hey, do you want to come over this weekend?" a friend would ask, hopeful eyes shining. I wished I could, desperately wanting to join in, to be part of something where I felt I belonged. But those weekends never happened. I was often busy trying to find a sense of identity beyond the labels. As the resentment began to fester within me, it weighed heavily, a burden I no longer wished to carry alone. I could take it no more. The careless jokes, the dismissive attitudes at the dinner table, the air of superiority emanating from Jessica and Nathan, whenever my name came up in conversation, felt like needles piercing through my chest, sharp and incessant. Each sting united, fueled a fire within me, demanding justice for the years I'd spent silently suffering. For years, I had accepted the role of the overlooked daughter, the accidental blessing tucked away in the corner of the family narrative. But now, I felt the embers of something more rising from my heart, a determination that hadn't been there before. No, I would not remain their little secret any longer. I would take back my narrative. It was time to reclaim my existence. How could I do such a thing? There was a flicker of excitement that ignited the brainstorm in my mind. I would outsmart them, rise against that carefully woven narrative they had crafted, and change the way they perceived me entirely. My first courageous step encapsulated a singular ambition. I would dedicate myself to my studies. Late nights turned into feverish mornings as I poured myself into books, journals, and notes, refusing to let another moment of my life pass me by without fighting for my place. There was a drive that coursed through my veins, one that made every fiber of my being resonate with the desperate need for change. The more I studied, the more I transformed, shifting from a side character into a vibrant figure drenched in color. I became the straight-A student. Each academic milestone I achieved felt like a trophy finally placed on display, one that I had rightfully earned, and that could not be ignored. Emily, I am really impressed by your progress this semester, Mr. Wilson, my history teacher, told me one afternoon as the bell rang. His voice was warm but firm, echoing through the hall like a sturdy bridge that connected us to the future. You've clearly put in some admirable effort. Thanks, Mr. Wilson, I replied, a beaming smile spreading across my face as my heart raced with anticipation. Each compliment was a brick laid in the pathway toward my new identity. I just really want to do well. Keep this up, and you'll go places, he said before departing, the enthusiasm hanging in the air like the pleasant scent of fresh paint. Every time teachers spoke of my potential, it filled me with more motivation. With each commendation, I felt the weight of accidental lift just a little more. I could see a world where I was no longer defined by the timing of my birth, but defined by my achievements and aspirations. I was blooming, and the sunbeams of encouragement felt like a long overdue embrace. I could envision my family gathered around the table once more, not just celebrating Nathan's recent promotion at work or Jessica's latest art gallery display, but celebrating me, the not-so-accidental blessing. At night, as my family sat watching television, I would retreat to my room to cover my walls with notes, posters, and schematics. I scribbled potential goals and plans, both on my notebook and on the whiteboard I had affixed to my wall. They were little reminders of who I was becoming, a notable presence ready to take charge of her destiny. My private sanctuary burgeoned with colors and structured chaos, all echoing ambition. As those nights stretched on, I could almost breathe in the exhilarating scent of victory. Suddenly, success did not seem like an elusive whisper. It was tangible, hanging in the air just within reach. In those moments of solitude, I dreamt of the academic scholarships that could bless my future. I could no longer allow the narrative of my identity to hinge solely on my siblings' accomplishments. "Have you seen Emily's last test scores?" my mother exclaimed with a hint of disbelief one evening, and I felt my heart flutter in response. "She is really excelling." My dad nodded solemnly. "Impressive, but remember, grades alone don't define you." But even he could not hide the flicker of surprise in his expression. That moment felt like the first ray of sunlight breaking through a perpetual storm. It made me wonder if others could start to see me, or if I would still be confined to the sidelines of their stories. "Yeah, I hope it lasts," Jessica remarked dismissively, rolling her eyes. "Remember when we thought we could get perfect scores too?" She tossed her hair over her shoulder, her voice dripping with condescension, reminding me that no matter how far I pushed, I was still perceived as the little sister grasping at shadows. Doubt flooded over me, washing away the triumph I had just tasted. "It will last," I reassured myself in silence, willing the comfort of my triumph to return. No more would I be dismissed. I would rise above the derision and judgments. "Just wait and see," I muttered under my breath, the fire returning stronger than before. It sustained me when their words tried to snuff out the last flickers of hope. In the weeks that followed, my determination began to sharpen, like the edges of a blade. Each thrust of challenge met head-on with tenacity. I spent every passing moment dedicated to my studies. I meticulously planned study sessions, bustled through libraries in quest of resources, and sought extra help with teachers after class. With every new exam, the adrenaline surged through my veins as I pushed the old narratives further away, splitting away the tendrils of my family's projections and creating new tracks for my path ahead. "We should start a study group for the math class," one of my classmates suggested during lunch one day as I savored my meager sandwich with enthusiasm. "It could help us all." "Sure, that sounds great," I responded, excitement coloring my voice. It felt good to belong in a group trying to move forward academically. In those moments, I finally felt like I wasn't just the girl languishing in the shadows. I was working alongside others toward a mutual goal, and it ignited hope in me, day by day. With each completed problem and each victorious test, I built a weapon out of my new identity, like an archer crafting arrows, ready to fly through the air and strike at the heart of the matter. No longer would I accept being a mere footnote in my family's grand tale. As graduation neared, a swag of nerves gripped me. I was terrified of the opportunity that would soon unroll before me. But more than fear, I felt the rush of challenge, the throbbing pulse of resolve ready to spring forth, like spring flowers bursting forth through the fresh earth. It was not just about gaining recognition. It was about rising from the ashes of the accidental blessing to reclaim a space that belonged to me. I was ready to craft my own story, one where I was no longer the pale wallpaper beneath the brilliance of my siblings, but the vibrant mural that would take center stage in the art of our family's narrative. And so, my tale began, not as the one who merely accepted the labels handed to me, but as the determined character who would rise against all odds to redefine who I was meant to be. All I needed was one spark, and I was becoming a wildfire despite all my efforts. The ache of invisibility clawed at me. The shadow of my siblings loomed large. This feeling was not just a momentary discomfort. It was like a dull, persistent throb embedded deep within me. While I knew I excelled academically, my family remained utterly oblivious as they basked in their own little worlds, each one perfectly happy playing their roles in our family's ongoing drama. Weekends flowed seamlessly for them, filled with outings, plans, and laughter, their lives painted vividly on the canvas of family gatherings and events, while I felt like that blank space on the edge of the painting, unnoticed and unappreciated. I was often left alone, stranded in my thoughts as I multifacetedly explored my own revolution, seeking solace in the extracurricular activities that became my refuge. I joined school clubs with enthusiasm, pouring myself into activities where other students shared similar interests. I thought that if I could find even just a pocket of connection, perhaps it would help fill up the hollowness that lived inside me like a ghost in the dark. Slowly, piece by piece, I constructed my own community, a circle of friends who became like family to me. I would often spend hours brainstorming for the debate team, sharing inside jokes with my fellow thespians, or brainstorming ways to fundraise for the art club. Every time I competed in a debate or performed during a talent show in front of my peers, I felt that flicker of hope ignite within me, warming me like the first light of dawn breaking through the darkness. Yet, despite the laughter and support of my friends, there was always that sharp pang of disappointment lodged in my chest every time I contemplated my family's indifference. A cold reminder that no matter how hard I tried, or how much I accomplished outside of their gaze, in their eyes, I was still invisible. The illusion of recognition was fleeting, like a mirage fading into the desert, and the reality crashed down on me like a heavy stone. They had no idea who I really was. Then the tipping point arrived. It felt monumental. I realized I needed to do something big, a performance that would demand their attention and shatter the walls of their obliviousness. I announced to my friends that I would host a talent show performance, confident that together we could put on a show that would astound everyone. We spent countless hours practicing, pouring our hearts into every routine, perfecting every move, embedding our emotions into the very fabric of our performance. In those moments of practice, laughter filled the air as we navigated dramatic flubs and triumphs, envisioning the instant the curtain would rise, and the moment our hard work would be rewarded. The anticipation bubbled inside me. I could almost taste the triumph. It was sweet and intoxicating, especially that day when after school we rushed onto the stage under the bright lights during a rehearsal to feel the exhilarating pulse of the performance echo in our hearts. "This is it," my friend exclaimed, giving me a thumbs up before the lights dimmed. "Get ready to blow them away." The night of the show arrived, and I stood backstage dressed in glittering attire, glancing nervously at my reflection in the dim backstage mirrors. Each facet of the mirror reflected another side of me, a side that wanted desperately to be visible, to be recognized. Nerves twisted in my stomach like a fist, the excitement buzzing through the air like static electricity. I could hear the murmur of the audience, the inevitable clinking of drink cups, and the rustle of coats as they settled into their seats. But as I peeked out into the audience, my heart sank when I spotted my family. They were there, sure, but just barely. Each face was rendered in a pallor of indifference, expressions ranging from disinterest to amusement. They huddled together like a trio of strangers, acting as if they were the only ones in the room, jesting among themselves, utterly absorbed in their private conversations, while the talent show buzzed with excitement. A fire ignited inside me as fury mixed with despair bubbled up. This moment was supposed to be mine, a moment where I might finally transcend my role as the invisible sibling. Yet here they were, playing oblivious yet again. Nothing could be worse than this moment. I had finally put myself out there, and the weight of their indifference was like a noose tightening around my throat. I wanted to scream, to shake them out of their stupor, to make them understand how much this meant to me. The realization that I was desperate for their validation struck me like a thunderbolt. Why won't they see me? I thought. Why can't they care? As I joined my friends on stage, I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, mixing with the sting of disappointment. My heart raced, each beat pounding with determination, desperation, and an unfamiliar rage. Every cheer from the audience, every clap echoed my resolve. I can do this, I told myself, swallowing hard to ease the anxiety that clung to my throat. The music began to resonate, filling the air with a melody that felt like electricity. And as we moved in unison, it felt as if we were channeling not only our passion, but the years of pain I had endured, the frustrations I had experienced, the longing to be heard that had settled deep within my bones. I poured every ounce of my being into those steps, letting the rhythm guide me while I transformed pain into beauty. I wanted this performance to be a declaration, a melody that whispered to them that I was alive and my existence mattered, even if they could not see it. As we reached the peak of our routine, I caught glimpses of my family, an eyebrow raised here, a chuckle there. I felt a flicker of hope blooming, but hesitated, waiting for confirmation, waiting for a sign that they were truly present. But their expressions seemed distant, as if they were watching the show through a thick glass wall. Would they even realize I was up there, pouring my heart out on stage for them? In that moment, I harnessed every flickering emotion and channeled it into my movements, the choreography transcending mere dance. With each twirl and leap, I felt like a wave crashing against the shore, and I was determined to leave my mark. My friends matched my energy, their faces lit with joy, conveying a message of unity and strength. I fixed my gaze forward into the audience, searching for a flicker of surprise, for a jolt of recognition. As the routine came to an end, a hush fell over the room before the sound of applause cascaded over us like a warm blanket, wrapping me in affirmation. I felt powerful and liberated, capable of making a mark in my own way. Laughter mixed with the applause created a symphony of acceptance that resonated deep in my heart. I improved, I celebrated, and I arrogantly embraced my moment. I dared to hope that this moment would finally bring my family around. Maybe they would see how hard I had worked, how much sweat and tears I had drenched into this performance. But truth struck me anew. As I scanned the audience, I could see the shock on their faces, blending with a renewed sense of awareness. My mom put her hand over her mouth in astonishment, while my siblings turned to each other, whispers replacing their previous laughter. Their chatter had quieted, replaced by astonishment. "Did you see her?" I caught my older brother murmuring under his breath, eyebrows raised, though still tinged with incredulity. I relished that moment, my heart swelling with hope as I caught my breath, satisfied at what I had accomplished. But beneath the thrill lay the uncertainty. Would they actually acknowledge my existence? Would this performance change anything moving forward? The fire within me flickered, but I promised myself I would fan those embers until they bloomed into an inferno. This was only the beginning. The stage was my battlefield, and I had just begun my fight. Little did they know that one performance would spark a revolution, a reckoning that would bring my family face to face with the truth they had avoided for so long. The knowledge that they would have to see me now fortified my spirit, and the sense of power hung in the air as I savored this night, a night that would haunt them until they finally recognized me, not just as their sibling, but as an individual worthy of love and acknowledgement. My heart pounded in my chest as I stood there, still vibing off the high of the show, a universe of emotions swirling beneath my calm surface. The applause had faded, but the echoes lingered, wrapping around me like a warm blanket. It felt surreal, the lights dimming, the crowd dispersing. But there they were, my family finally navigating through the mass of people toward me, their faces a mix of expressions I had longed to see. My heart lifted with hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they would finally see me, the real me, the girl who had yearned for their acknowledgement, like a flower reaching for the sun. My mother's eyes sparkled in the soft afterglow like they had never done before, each glint a promise. And yet, there was something else there, something darker lurking beneath her glimmering gaze. I could sense the frustration simmering within her, waiting to burst forth like a dam of unexpressed emotions. Why was that frustration there? Was she finally on the verge of telling me how proud she was, how she finally saw me for who I was? I stood there, nerves tingling as they got closer, my heart both racing and slowing in anticipation. I wanted her to say the words I had imagined for years. "Emily, I am so proud of you." But as she came close, shaking her head ever so slightly with disbelief, her words stumbled out in a broken whisper. "Emily, I cannot believe how incredible you were. I don't know why we never noticed." The air thickened between us, the words suspended like dust motes caught in a beam of sunlight, and I felt a maelstrom of conflicting feelings crashing over me. On one hand, yes, this was acknowledgement. This was my family finally recognizing my worth, but it felt tainted too. almost like a gift wrapped in rags, neat on the outside, but a disappointment inside. I wanted to lash out, scream that I had been standing here all along, waiting to be seen, yearning for their validation. Each word of hers tried to lift me, but it was as if I were trapped in a buoy with a hole. Despite the warmth of her words, the doubt and expectation clung to them like shadows. I looked over at Jessica and Nathan, who were standing side by side, both still agape, their eyes wide in shock, as if they were seeing an entirely different version of me. But then, a spark ignited in my heart. I realized I didn't need their approval anymore. The epiphany washed over me like a cascade of clean water, dragging away the grime of expectation. I had a newfound strength that surged through me like a river, breaking free from a dam. I stood tall, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. You know, it's not about what you think or why you didn't notice before. You can acknowledge me, and I appreciate that. But I am already great in my own right. My voice, steady and firm, echoed softly amidst the fading sounds of the crowd around us. I gazed deeply into their eyes, willing them to see the truth that had finally bloomed in my heart. All I truly sought, in the deepest corners of my being, was to exist, the resilience and power of being seen, the very essence of finding my place in a world that had always felt like a closed door. The fluttering of my hope settled into a quiet determination as I turned my attention away from them for a moment and surveyed the sea of faces surrounding me. Friends emerged in vibrant colors, standing proudly at the sidelines, clapping, smiling, and exuding pure joy. They were my real support team, a chosen family that rooted for me fiercely, vibrant and alive. My heart swelled, holding onto that realization tightly, warmth diffusing through me, filling the cracks in my soul that had been aching for so long. I recognized the truth in this moment. My worth did not hinge on my parents' validation, on the words they struggled to articulate. I chose to build my own happiness, my own narrative. Slowly, I allowed myself to let my gaze wander back to my family. But instead of anger or resentment, an unexpected wave of forgiveness washed over me, so soothing, almost cleansing. They were my family after all. And yes, despite everything, I loved them. They needed time. Perhaps this was their journey too, finding their way to acknowledge me in their own time, just as I had begun to acknowledge myself. I realized that their journey of understanding was different from mine. Perhaps they would get there eventually, but the urgency of that mattered less than the courage I had discovered within myself. Every fragment of doubt and ache from the past had been transformed. Glimmering now like the stars, I could finally see after the clouds had parted. My mom looked lost in thought, still shaking her head, possibly struggling with the reality of what she had witnessed, and how it contrasted so strongly against the child she had always known. Emily, she started, her voice trailing off, eyes searching mine, as if hoping I would offer her a lifeline. I took a deep breath, grounding myself in this moment. "It's okay, Mom," I said softly, the warmth of understanding swelling in my bosom like a rising tide. "You're finally seeing me, and I appreciate that. But I am here, and I always have been. I watched a flicker of realization spark in her eyes as my words broke through the fog of expectations, hinting at a deeper understanding. I could see it dawn on her this was not merely about acknowledgement, but also about the evolution of love and the chaos that often accompanied growth. Jessica chimed in with a bright smile, her enthusiasm infectious. You were unreal tonight. Honestly, I can't believe how amazing you were. I mean, did you see the looks on their faces? They finally got a glimpse. Her laughter, a melody of pure joy, seemed to uplift the tension in the air, injecting life into this moment that had been suspended in disbelief. Nathan gave a thumbs up, his own grin stretching ear to ear, as if he had just witnessed a miracle. We always knew you had it in you, he added with genuine warmth, and it felt like an affirmation that ricocheted off the walls of my heart. A powerful reminder I had friends who saw my truth, raw and unfiltered. I turned back to my family, who still stood a few feet away, their presence seeming smaller now in the expanse of this newfound strength. This is what I've been working toward, I said, my voice carrying a strength I hadn't known I possessed before tonight. I don't need you to be proud of me for me to feel good about who I am. I'm proud of me, and it took me a long time to get here. My mother's face shifted, the frustration like a storm cloud threatening to release downpour. But instead, I detected the tension easing, the tightness in her jaw relaxing just a notch. Emily, she started again, more pronounced this time. It's just, I wish I could have seen it sooner. I regret not recognizing how brilliant you were. I appreciate that, I said gently, absorbing her honesty like a sponge. But more than anything, I need you to understand that I can exist outside of your expectation. The silence stretched between us, thick with emotion, yet I felt no need to fill it. Instead, I turned back to my friends. Thank you for being here, I said genuinely, feeling the gratitude blooming within. They had always believed in me, had always been my shining stars. I laughed, a sound bursting forth like bubbles from a glass of soda, spontaneous and infectious. Okay, so what's next? Do we celebrate or what? Laughter erupted, cascading around us as my friends cheered, the night lifting and swirling around us in joyous chaos. Yes, let's celebrate you, Nathan exclaimed, launching into an overly enthusiastic dance move, and we all joined him, laughter spilling out like confetti. The night rippled with possibilities, and even my family, still hovering in the background, became faint in my periphery as I lost myself in the joy swirling around me like a whirlwind. My heart, once heavy with the weight of unspoken words and unacknowledged longing, felt light as a feather, buoyed by the love of those who truly mattered. I had stepped into my own narrative, and the momentum swelled within me, ready for the next chapter of this beautiful, unfolding story. As we ventured into the night, I felt a strange mix of closure and expansion, a space to breathe, a world where I could be all that I was and all that I would become. I was more than the whispers of approval I had yearned for. I was a bright flame, flickering against the dark, invincible in my authenticity. And this night was just the beginning as the weeks rolled on. The remnants of the talent show still echoed through the familiar corridors of our home. Amidst the crumpled programs and half-finished desserts from celebratory family dinners lay the raw memories of a time when voices filled the air with mixed emotions, euphoria intermingled with the shadowy tendrils of past disdain. My parents, once seemingly disconnected from my world, were making attempts. It was strange, almost surreal, the way we started to fill the gaps in our conversations. Phrases that had previously felt lost in the ether started to take on some form of meaning, a strange currency infused with both regret and hope. They no longer skirted around the edges, their eyes filled with a bubbling, burgeoning curiosity that pushed against the walls I'd built around my heart. But all of this, I quickly learned, could not erase the scars of yesterday. I had changed. I was no longer the timid girl waiting for an approval stamp from parents who hardly saw me begin, but rather a young woman carving out her own path with a fierce intensity that surprised even me at times. Deep inside, I started to embrace the truth. My story was mine alone, and I was no longer bound by the need for their validation. I immersed myself in activities that allowed my voice to soar. Community theater had become a sanctuary, my refuge filled with laughter, creativity, and a vibrant energy. Every night, as the stage lights flickered on, I felt alive, pouring parts of myself into the characters I played, transforming new environments and mingling with people who shared that same electrifying passion. Being part of that group, surrounded by others who understood that yearning for expression, was exhilarating. Each rehearsal, each performance, was like a breath of fresh air, filling up the stale spaces in my heart. Volunteer work at local charities added another layer of fulfillment I hadn't anticipated. Delivering food to families obviously struggling, or helping organize resources for a nearby school made me feel connected to my community in a way I had never expected. The smiles I received in return warmed the previously cold parts of my soul, and the satisfaction of making a small difference became its own reward. My circle of friends expanded, blossoming into a tapestry of different backgrounds and dreams woven together with shared ambition. We explored our futures together, each of us kindling sparks that ignited one another's visions. Laughter and adventure marked our moments, unforgettable snapshots captured in the lens of youth. At family gatherings, the transformed atmosphere was almost tangible. I found myself voicing thoughts during discussions, my once hesitant nature now replaced by confident expression. My parents were visibly present, their previous indifference turned inside out into genuine interest. When they asked about my outlandish dreams or the latest plot of the play I was rehearsing, the desire to really know me lit up their faces. I could see Jessica and Nathan, my siblings, silently observing, their eyes darting towards one another, nervous yet intrigued, waiting with bated breath for my next move. Their earlier dismissive looks had dropped their heavy curtain, now revealing a softer, more considerate gaze. It was almost like I could sense the shift. The trepidation that had lingered had started to dissolve into a strange, shared understanding, a new foundation for connection. Yet, buried deep within the joyful layers of transformation, a piece of me wrestled with the lingering stings of neglect. The warmth I now received from my parents often felt akin to a sweet poison, delectable yet tainted with hesitation. Each compliment floated toward me packed with nostalgia, and while I smiled politely, a whisper in my mind cautioned my heart, reminding me of the years spent in darkness, unseen. Could I trust that something different was unfolding? Or was it merely an echo of my past, attempting to drag me into its shadows again? Then one evening, over a dinner set almost perfectly, sunset hues trickling through the window, painting a warm glow across the room, my father's serious gaze cut through the pleasant chaos of family chatter. I set my fork down, my stomach flipping with unexpected anticipation as I shifted my focus solely to him. "Emily," he began, his voice a quiet tremor filled with sincerity, "we were wrong not to notice you, and I cannot express how sorry I am for every time you felt overlooked." Each word arrived like raindrops landing on dry earth, a long-awaited nourishment for my heart that had been parched for years. "You have an incredible gift, and you deserve to be seen, not just as our daughter, but as who you truly are," he continued, his earnest eyes searching for a sign of acknowledgement. "I want to work hard to earn your trust." My breath caught, the rich flavors of the dinner momentarily lost in the swelling of my emotions. "Dad, I don't need validation anymore," I responded, my voice unwavering, filled with a strength that I often didn't realize lived within me. "I have found my path on my own now, and I embrace it." I could feel the eyes of my siblings on me. Their curiosity seemed to radiate through the air like vibrant sparks. "We can start fresh, not with expectations, but as equals," I added, surprising even myself with my firm stance. I paused, savoring the significance of my next words. "I choose to forgive you, but let's build our relationships without that old baggage weighing us down." My heart thundered as honesty poured uncontrollably out of me, my vulnerability finally, it seemed, finding a trustworthy haven. The table quieted as my words hung there, a bittersweet tension threading through our interaction, vying for release. But I did not flinch. Instead, I leaned into the silence that followed, feeling a sense of empowerment washing over me like a summer rain. I could finally see the stirrings of change in their faces, the flicker of understanding sparking in my father's eyes. That night, an unfamiliar softness enveloped the air around us. The walls of resentment I had built around my heart crumbling into dust, released by the power of truth. I felt liberated, as if chains that had once restrained me had fallen into oblivion. In that moment, I understood something crucial. My journey had been less about revenge over my family and more about conquering the struggles within myself. I had risen to meet the challenge of my own identity and emerged stronger, weathered from the storm, and finally victorious over my own demons. Through every performance and every shared laugh with friends, I had created new connections that resonated with trust and respect. And now, as I grasped the opportunity my parents extended toward me, it didn't come from a place of needing their validation, but blossomed from a space of shared growth and mutual understanding. It was a chance to rewrite the narrative between us, not to fulfill their desires, but to carve out my own authentic story. The realization washed over me, a warm tide against the scars of my past. My steps away from thoughts of revenge were carefully chosen, a shift towards healing that grew well within me. That understanding became my sanctuary, the most powerful revenge of all watching as I transformed not just my own life, but the fabric of our family dynamic. Looking toward the future, possibilities unfolded before me, and I felt as though I was no longer merely an observer of my own life, but an active participant in the beautiful adventure. I could finally glimpse the beauty nestled within each twist and turn of my narrative, the unseen hero rising from the shadows, ready to bask in the warmth of the light. And enveloped by the rich tapestry I had woven around me,